Welcome back to our pre-recorded webinar series, Rebound 2021. I'm Kate Collins.
And I'm Pam Coburn-Litvak.
Gallup recently published an article called What We Learned in 2020. They summarized their research into 7 statements, and in their final statement, they wrote what you see here. If leaders have learned anything in 2020, it's that employee well-being is an essential factor in business survival. If your people aren't healthy, physically and mentally, you won't succeed. It's clear that if we don't know how to deal with our stress and overwhelm, and if they further snowball into issues like burnout or breakdown in our physical and mental health, then we are not only putting ourselves at risk, we're putting our personal interests at risk as well. Learning to manage stress and promote well-being has the opposite effect on business and employee engagement. The Gallup article continues. Gallup has found that employee well-being and engagement are highly reciprocal, meaning influencing each other, and additive, meaning they boost each other. When employers support well-being, they support their employees' engagement, performance, and productivity as well.
So in session 3, let's talk about how stress shows up for us in the workplace. This will alert us to what specific stressors we may need to pay attention to and manage better. What would you say are your top sources of stress at work right now? What would you guess are the top workplace stressors reported nationally? What we've done in this session is we have combined data from several different research sources. Some of this data comes from for-profit companies that serve the business community, and other data comes from nonprofits that keep their fingers on the pulse of stress in the United States and around the world. The top stressor that affects roughly 80% of those that get surveyed is ineffective and fragmented communication. Interestingly, this doesn't change with the size of the company. It affects small companies as well as large ones. In a survey of nearly 10,000 workers by a nonprofit called Mental Health America, 60% reported that they just didn't feel supported enough. For example, their supervisor didn't check in with them to see how they were doing and what they might need. Half of those surveyed struggle with poor relationships at work, either supervisors or coworkers. And 40% report struggling with poor collaboration, team members not pitching into projects or not pulling their own weight. So it's interesting to note that almost all of the top sources of stress are about people, relationships at work. But other top sources of stress are about the work itself. 50% report that unforeseen problems cause them stress. And 50% report that they get stressed out over unrealistic deadlines. 30% report they get stressed because they feel overwhelmed by the amount that they have to do. And 30% also report stress due to bottlenecks. Here's what concerns me about all of these sources of stress put together. They likely feed into each other. What I mean is, when we get stressed out about work, an unrealistic deadline, or other things that happen at work like overload, our relationships with others might also become strained. So we create these stress cycles that can feed themselves and can get worse over time. We already know that job stress impacts us in our personal life. We talked about the symptoms of how that happens in another session. Now let's talk about the professional impact. If you're an employer or a manager, I have some potentially bad news for you. Up to 50 to 60% of your workforce might be regularly looking for other jobs, at least several times a week, due to their job stress. Or they might feel just mentally checked out due to burnout. And burnout is costly, to the tune of $400 to $500 billion a year. Not surprisingly, as stress levels rise, work performance and quality tend to go down. And work relationships also start to suffer. So a lot of stressed out and burned out people start to withdraw socially. They start skipping meetings, they don't come to office parties, and when you interact with them, they can feel on edge and distant. Others start to take unplanned time off, and they have trouble managing their emotions at work.
These statistics translate into decreased engagement at work, which has many impacts on each of us and those we work alongside. Many of us have started to rethink our priorities at work and what really matters most to us. Some may have disconnected from purpose or value at work. We may feel inadequate in work, life, or both. With new protocols or work environments, many of us have experienced relationship strain at work as well. As we know, there have been record layoffs, so it's no surprise that many are feeling a lack of security in employment. All of these impacts align with the disengagement we're seeing in the workforce. A loss of connection to purpose in your work can really make all the parts of your life feel askew. We've been hearing a lot about this crisis and disengagement in the news through stories like these. We've seen videos from healthcare professionals wondering why they're working so hard to save lives, only to see people engaging in high-risk behaviors. Or parents trying to manage children at home while working full-time remotely. Women are impacted in particular. We've seen over 2.2 million women leave the workforce since the pandemic began. Or this less talked about but still important aspect, single professionals working insanely long days to either take one for the team or to escape loneliness and isolation due to the pandemic. Our typical and once useful strategies to manage stress and to support our engagement at work may not be working now with the sustained and intense stress we're under.
It's time for another self-assessment. What workplace stressors are impacting you right now? Did you resonate with any of the top stressors that we covered here? What have you done to mitigate the impact of those stressors on you, both personally and professionally? Maybe you're just not sure where to start in managing your stress. And if so, we're so glad, and we invite you to keep watching this webinar series, because now that we've defined the problem, we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about solutions. If you need professional help, please do reach out to a trusted doctor or counselor, or reach out to one of the national or international hotlines that are in place. And Kate and I also have a wealth of resources to share with you to help you manage your stress in the workplace. Through our coaching, consulting, and training programs, we help our clients manage their stress in terms of things like change management, poor communication, conflict, time and priorities management, and so much more. Please do contact us if you'd like to learn about a customized solution for your organization. And enjoy watching the rest of Rebound 2021.